And welcome everybody to yet another exciting episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Don't forget you can catch an episode of this broadcast on WQEE Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 on 99.1 FM. This is Monday, and every noon I recap everything that happened over the weekend. I include my college football reaction show. I'll break down the NFL in this episode. Don't forget to like the Facebook page and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's called The Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Also, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, this podcast goes on a different platform, the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can catch that every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On tomorrow's show, I will break down all the games in high school football in week 8. So I'm going to do that tomorrow. But on today's show, going to talk about some of the local sporting events that happened over the weekend, including the Tuskegee Morehouse Classic at A.J. McClung Memorial Stadium. Columbus State soccer gets a big convincing win over Albany State. And then LaGrange College ends up losing to Maryville. And I'm also going to talk about the baseball playoffs. The New York Liberty are now in the WNBA finals and NBA preseason. Yeah, I'm talking NBA preseason. LeBron and Bronny make history as they take the court as father and son. I know we're going to wait until the regular season to see if this happens, but it's preseason. It's kind of cool. I wanted to throw that out there. Before we get into anything on the show, my heartfelt prayers just go out to the community of Appalachia High School. Over the weekend, they played football for the first time since the school shooting. The Rock was in attendance. It was a packed house. And this was a healing process for the community of Appalachia High School. And I felt like this needed to happen just to help get just back a sense of normalcy. And it was one of those games where, after a tragedy, you end up coming back. And, we saw this in 2007 with Virginia Tech football. This was something that was very important that needed to happen. And I felt like this was a healing process for the community. Meanwhile, there's still a lot of schools in the affected areas of Hurricane Helene that still has not played football yet. So the GHSA has decided to extend the postseason 1 week out. So the week of November the 8th, that will be a makeup week for a lot of these schools because a lot of region games were canceled. And so this is going to give them an opportunity to make up some of those key games. We hope that all the schools out there, they get back safe and they are able to recover from this because was a devastating tragedy that happened a week ago. And my thoughts and prayers just go out to the communities that were affected by Hurricane Helene. All right, Columbus State soccer, they're 7-0-1 after defeating Albany State, a school record 17. That's right, 17 goals. Incredible effort by the Columbus State women's soccer team and their head coach, Jay Entlick. That is incredible. And I remember, because I have invested interest in the Columbus State women's soccer team. Remember, I was on the call when they went to the Final Four 2 years ago. I did the home opener last year and then just decided, let's get some of these younger broadcasters a chance to call some of these games. And so, I stepped down and I committed to Georgia Alabama Sports Live full time. But I'm proud of really what Columbus State women's soccer has done over the past couple of years. And they are rolling. And let's see how they play out the season, especially we do have a Peach Belt Conference game against Lander that was postponed because of Hurricane Helene. Let's see if that gets played out and rescheduled to another time. All right, over the weekend, the Tuskegee Morehouse Classic returns to Columbus for the first time since 2019. And it was an event. We had tailgating. We had the parade. All the news stations were out there. And I think that it's just one of these events that we're just excited that Columbus gets to host it, kind of like the Fountain City Classic. We do have 3 college football games that happen in Columbus. and Tuskegee, which, is about an hour outside of Columbus. They seem like the local team. Morehouse is a school up in Atlanta. Tuskegee ends up winning the game 42-0. So congratulations to Tuskegee. And another college football game that I want to talk about, the LaGrange Panthers ended up losing to Maryville 38-13. They won their first game for the first time in 2 years last week. So Callaway Stadium was rocking, and that's just a great sight to see. Just the crowd and the community up in LaGrange just pack Callaway Stadium, and just enjoy just supporting the LaGrange Panthers because they are the local team here in the Chattahoochee Valley. And we had the baseball playoffs. The Padres ended up defeating the Los Angeles Dodgers 10-2 to tie up that series at 1 apiece. The New York Mets fall to the Philadelphia Phillies 7-6. Nick Castellanos does it again with a walk-off, and the Phillies tied that series up. So we got some interesting series in the National League. Meanwhile, game 2s tonight in the American League Division Series. We've got the New York Yankees. They got the 1-0 lead on the Kansas City Royals. The Cleveland Guardians, a 1-0 lead over the Detroit Tigers. In my opinion, it's Yankees World Series or bust. I know that the casual baseball fan wants to see the Yankees and the Dodgers in the World Series. I think it would be great for baseball. I wouldn't like it because I don't like either team. But Shohei Ohtani, his first postseason game, hit a 3-run homer. I think that he is built for the postseason, and he is marketable. And you got marketable stars like Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. I think it'd be fascinating if it's the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series, but let's hope not, because I really, I'm being selfish. I think that the casual baseball fan would love to see Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series, the two largest media markets. It's going to get a huge rating. They haven't played since 1981, or they played in 1977 too. Reggie Jackson with the 3 home runs. I think this is what the baseball fan wants to see. And, if it is Yankees, Mets, nobody wants to see another Subway Series except people in New York. All right. Well, congratulations to the New York Liberty. Speaking of New York, they reached the WNBA Finals. They get the monkey off their back as they are able to beat the Las Vegas Aces, and they are now in the NBA Finals. We still have another game that hasn't been decided. The Connecticut Sun and the Minnesota Lynx are all knotted up at 2. They will go for a winner-take-all game 5 in the semifinals. And my thoughts on the WNBA, I thought that they would lose some of its lackluster because Caitlin Clark is no longer in the postseason. Now, don't get me wrong. The casual sports fan was drawn to the TV when Caitlin Clark was in this thing. It drew 2.5 million viewers. I said on this show, I was hoping that audience sticks around because this is a fascinating product. We've had some great teams, and I'm very curious to see what the ratings are going to look like now that Caitlin Clark is not in this tournament. Speaking of which, it is official. She was named WNBA Rookie of the Year. Angel Reese only got 1 vote, and that makes sense because Angel Reese was injured. But Caitlin Clark had a fascinating rookie year, and looking forward to seeing her in 2025. But the WNBA playoffs, it's a good product, and we got some great teams. We got stars, and so I hope that the casual sports fan sticks around and watches, even though there's just so much sporting events going on. We're here in the month of October. There's just a lot going on. All right, NBA preseason. LeBron and Bronny take the court. First time ever in an NBA game that a father and son take the court. It wasn't a regular season game. It's still kind of cool. I like seeing this. I don't know if Bronny makes the team. I think he goes into the G League, but I still think that this was a really cool moment for a father and son. We've seen this in other sports. We've seen Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Sr. both racing together. We've seen Ken Griffey Sr., Ken Griffey Jr. They hit home runs back to back. That was incredible. So we've had father-son duos before in sporting events. All right, let's not waste any more time because I want to get into the NFL games. Usually This is my NFL reaction show. I've implemented some other sports into this because I'm going the full hour. I did my college football reaction show yesterday, and I'm going the full hour because there's just a lot of sporting events to cover. Sometimes people will reach out to me and ask, well, how come you don't have guests on anymore? Here's the thing about guests. If you want to be a guest on the show, message me. I will make time to get you on the show. I have a full hour Monday through Friday on WQEE. Yes, there is plenty of time to get a guest on the show. Sometimes I will include Georgia Alabama Sports live shows. These coaches shows I do for Georgia Alabama Sports Live, sometimes I'll throw them in because they're good interviews, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm neglecting my guests. I would love to get guests on, but on Mondays, you know the drill. I do a full hour without a guest because there's so much sporting events to get to. All right, let's talk about that Sunday night football game. And normally I do my reaction show late Sunday night, like right after the Sunday night football game. Well, I decided I'm not going to do that because there was an hour and a half weather delay, and this game did not end until 2:30 in the morning or 12:30 in the morning. The Dallas Cowboys, what a game. They were trailing 17-13. Dak doing Dak things. He did have 2 interceptions, by the way. But the fact is you're down your 2 top defensive players, and you don't have your number 2 wide receiver, Brandon Cooks. And the Dallas Cowboys don't really have a running back. It's running back by committee. The fact to go into Pittsburgh on Sunday night football, and yeah, I know it was a primetime game, but a lot of the audience probably went to bed just because it was way too late. But the Dallas Cowboys get the win. This was a very impressive win for the Dallas Cowboys. And by the way, a wide open NFC. I mean, you got the top teams, the Vikings and the Commanders. This NFC is wide open, and the Dallas Cowboys get a huge win. Congratulations to Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so let's go ahead and run down these scores. Caleb Williams looked fantastic as the Chicago Bears ended up defeating the Carolina Panthers. And I thought that Caleb Williams was going to be a bust because he has struggled in the first couple of games. And, the Bears may have regretted to not take Jaden Daniels instead of Caleb Williams. But Caleb Williams did a very good job. He got on the same page with DJ Moore. And I think that is very important. And yeah, they're playing the Panthers. But Caleb Williams, very good game. 20-29, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And the Chicago Bears are 3-2 in an absolutely loaded NFC North. This could be the best division in football. In fact, it is the best division in football. Carolina is 1-4. And I look at this game and, Andy Dalton was in there, and then Bryce Young came back in, and it's a big mess in Carolina. And I tell you what, I mean, it's one of those things that if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, I mean, there is hope on the horizon. We got to figure out if Bryce Young can still play football, but they better think fast because they are hosting the Atlanta Falcons next. And, the Falcons are right now the number 3 team in the NFC. I mean, this is incredible. I'm going to have my top 10 rankings tomorrow because, every Tuesday I like doing the top 10 NFL teams, kind of like what Colin Cowherd does for the NFL hierarchy. But yeah, top 10. Here we go. How about those Washington Commanders 4-1? And I'm excited. It's 34-13, by the way. I got that score wrong. My bad. Jaden Daniels. I'm gonna take that score off. All right. How about that? All right. So I was happy about the Commanders. Not so happy about the 49ers. This one stung. The 49ers had a 23-10 lead. They got shut out in the second half. Brock Purdy throws 2 interceptions. They can't stop Kyler Murray. I mean, it's laughable. Kyler Murray has been 49ers kryptonite. He has completely dominated the 49ers every time the Cardinals play them. This was a game the 49ers should have won because they were at home. They are the better team. Once again, in the same season, Kyle Shanahan blows a double-digit fourth quarter lead. Are you kidding me? Really? And I'll give you this. Because the NFC is wide open, the 49ers being 2-3 is not the end of the world, but their schedule really toughens up because then they got a short week. They got to travel up to the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday night. And then the following week, they're hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, it's easily can get out of hand quick. Let's just hope that Christian McCaffrey can come back and he is healthy because he is a difference maker. There were some sports talk show hosts that said, if Christian McCaffrey was in this game, I think that they blow out the Cardinals. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is a difference maker. It was good to see Brandon Ayuk earn his $30 million as he had a pretty good game. But, you had Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings. They were all there. There was no excuse for the 49ers to lose this game. And even, they had 23 points, but 7 of those points was on a blocked field goal attempt. So this is just puzzling. You look at the last 3 possessions, and they go for it on fourth down. They don't get it. Jordan Mason fumbles. Brock Purdy throws that terrible interception. When Arizona took the 24-23 lead, the 49ers had no timeouts, but they had 1:20 left to go. Plenty of time to get down. And maybe I was thinking going for the touchdown because Jake Moody got hurt. So they didn't have their field goal kicker. It was just a disaster. Hopefully the 49ers can bounce back and beat the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday. Speaking of the Seattle Seahawks, wow, I was shocked about this one. They end up losing 29-20. And Daniel Jones, which he's gotten a lot of criticism. A lot of people want Daniel Jones benched, but he had a very strong performance. And I was shocked that the Giants ended up winning this game without Malik Neighbors. And it was up in Seattle. So maybe Seattle, who started 3-0, is not a team that we all thought was going to be one of the top teams in the NFC, like a juggernaut, a playoff team. I think that they're in trouble. I think that Seattle loses to San Francisco on Thursday night. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a 49ers fan and I don't like the Seahawks. I'm saying that because I just don't think the Seattle Seahawks are just a great team. They are good. They beat the bad teams and they don't beat themselves. They're a team that can pick up some wins, but this was a bad loss. I mean, you lose to a Giants team that I thought was one of the worst teams in the NFL. They played the Cowboys close on Thursday night. They did have some extra days to prepare for this game. And, it was 23-20, and the Giants ended up getting a blocked kick all the way back to the house. I mean, we saw that in the same week of football. We've had 2 block kicks returned for touchdowns. That's pretty impressive. All right, well, the Houston Texans, 23-20. Kai Fairbairn, a 59-yard field goal to walk it off. The Texans are 4-1. Buffalo has lost 2 straight. My biggest concern, Tank Dell is going to be out for well, let me see that real quick. Nico Collins was they have. Here's the thing. The Texans have a lot of great wide receivers, and Nico Collins is going to be out for a while. He was injured in that game. Houston, CJ Stroud is that guy, and they are 4-1. So congratulations, the Houston Texans, getting a win. And their only loss this season was to the Vikings. They play the Patriots next week. I'm looking at their schedule. They got some winnable games. I'm excited. They play the Packers and they do play the Lions. They play the Cowboys. But there are some games on here like the Colts, the Jets, the Patriots, where they could easily get those wins. And they're just going to continue sailing throughout the season. And we've got some primetime games coming up for the Houston Texans. I want people to see CJ Stroud for what he is, and he's a very good quarterback. This was a fun game. The Baltimore Ravens, I thought that they had this game lost, but they ended up beating the Cincinnati Bengals in overtime, 41-38, and a milestone for Derrick Henry, as it just goes to show that when you have Derrick Henry, you're going to have just an opportunity to win. And Baltimore has won 3 straight. They're still one of the top teams in the AFC. And I thought this is one of those games. The Bengals are playing at home. You got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. They're going to find a way to get this win because they are desperate. But the Baltimore Ravens win. The Bengals are 1-4. I mean, talk about a disappointing 1-4 team is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I don't know where the Bengals go from here. 4-1. They do play the Giants, but that is in New York. I actually don't think that's an automatic win, especially the way the Giants beat the Seahawks. I do see them beating the Browns, but they got to play the Eagles. They got to play the Chargers, the Steelers. It is going to be tough. I don't think the Bengals make the playoffs, and it's sad because the Bengals were one of the teams that I thought were going to make the playoffs in the AFC. All right, how about Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos getting their 3rd straight win of the season? Bo Nix just staying in there, and he's doing his thing. Patrick Surtain had 2 interceptions, and the Raiders going to change quarterbacks as Gardner Minshew got benched. I like some of the things the Raiders do. I mean, they go to 2-3. The Broncos are 3-2. I like Brock Bowers. I do like, some of their pieces that they have, but it's time to go try to find a quarterback in 2025. I think that when they lost Derek Carr to New Orleans, they just didn't have that sustainable quarterback for the long term. Aiden O'Connell comes in relief for Gardner Minshew. He throws an interception. So the Raiders quarterbacks just were not very good on this day. And come on, run the football. You got Amir Abdullah. You got Alexander Madison. I know that they didn't have Zamir White. The Raiders don't have a running back. I mean, they lost Josh Jacobs to the Packers, and he was their every down running back, Pro Bowl running back. And the Raiders, which Devontae Adams didn't play in this game, so we don't know if he is going to get traded anytime soon. I mean, he's going to get traded in the season. Just don't know where he's going. Please don't go to the Chiefs. I'm telling you, I would hate that so much. Anyway, the Raiders, they're 2-3, but it doesn't feel like they're 2-3. It feels like they're 0-5. Well, they play the Steelers next week, so good luck. Let's go down these scores. The Miami Dolphins, and I seriously thought when Tua went on the injured list that the Miami Dolphins would be terrible. They would be one of the worst teams in the NFL. This was a big win, and it was a defensive battle. It was a battle between 2 1-3 teams. So the Patriots fall to 1-4. The Patriots are going to be just in rebuilding mode this year. I think, when is it time to go ahead and start Drake May? You're 1-4. Let's see if Drake May is the guy. I don't think that Jacoby Brissett is going to get the job done. The Patriots are 1-4, and it doesn't get any easier because they take on the Houston Texans next. As far as the Dolphins, Tyler Huntley wasn't terrible, but you had Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright, rushing for over 80 yards. Tyreek Hill doing his thing. I mean, it was just a matchup of just 2 mediocre teams, and the Dolphins ended up getting the win. All right, let's move down the score line as the Jacksonville Jaguars get their first win of the season. And how about Callaway's own Tank Bigsby? He had an incredible day for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 13 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Congratulations to Tank Bigsby. And the Jaguars are 1-4. And Trevor Lawrence actually passed for 371 yards. And Brian Thomas, he had 122 yards receiving. And Brian Thomas, just another LSU wide receiver that's doing great things in the NFL. I mean, these are just diamonds in the rough. And Brian Thomas, great job out there for the Jaguars. Green Bay ends up getting the win over the Rams. The Rams are just banged up, and the Rams fall to 1-4. This is another disappointing team that made the playoffs last year. There was high expectations for the Rams this year. They are not getting it done, and you look at their receiving core, completely depleted. I mean, when you have Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell, they're your receivers. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua. When are they going to come back for the Rams? The Rams do play the Raiders, but then they play the Vikings. The Packers, they are 3-2. Jordan Love is back from that injury. He looks pretty good. He's solid. Josh Jacobs, their running back. But let's be honest here. The Packers are in the best division in football. You got the Vikings that are undefeated. You got the Lions. You got the Bears that are 3-2. Anyway, speaking of which, this was the early game in London. The Minnesota Vikings end up beating the New York Jets. There's something seriously wrong with the Jets. And, the Jets are now 2-3. Aaron Rodgers throws 3 interceptions. I think that Robert Saleh is going to be fired. I mean, he is definitely on the hot seat. I think that he will not survive this season because the Jets just might be the most disappointing team in the NFL. There was high hopes with Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't get any easier because they play the Bills on Monday night, which, by the way, they beat the Bills last year on Monday night. They play the Steelers, and I just don't know if, he's going to – and Aaron Rodgers did get hurt in this game, by the way. But how about the Minnesota Vikings? 5-0. They are the only team in the NFC that's undefeated. The Chiefs are undefeated in the AFC. By the way, the Chiefs do play the Saints tonight for Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings are just doing it because Sam Darnold, even though he was sacked 4 times in this game, Sam Darnold is, an efficient quarterback. He didn't have the greatest game. He did have an interception, and the Vikings didn't really run the football very well. But when you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, the 1-2 combo at receiver, and you have the offensive mind of Kevin O'Connell, you have Brian Flores as your defensive coordinator, the Minnesota Vikings have just a team that could compete in the NFC. This team is for real. This team can compete in the NFC, and I think that the Minnesota Vikings, let's see their schedule. They got a bye, and well needed because they went across the pond to take on the New York Jets. They're 5-0. They go into their bye week, hosting the Detroit Lions in 2 weeks. What a massive game for the Minnesota Vikings. This is a playoff team. Could even make an NFC championship. I don't know about the Super Bowl. I mean, that's tough to try to – it's still the Vikings. I still want to see what they do in the regular season. Well, I kind of went through those NFL scores pretty fast because I had to wrap this thing up, kind of keep it under 30 minutes. But thank you so much, everybody, for watching another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Don't forget, on tomorrow's show, I'm going to recap Monday Night Football, going to recap the baseball playoffs, going to talk NFL top 10, just like the herd hierarchy. I will list out my top 10 NFL teams according to me, and then I will wrap up some of the things that I got going on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Here's what we got going on for Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We got the Glenwood Gators Coaches Show. We got the Calvary Coaches Show. I will be at Calvary for Schley County Calvary softball. And then tomorrow I will have my show for Georgia Alabama Sports Live, the Scoreboard Show. Might get on later tonight after the Chiefs Saints Monday Night Football game. But if not, I will do that show tomorrow morning. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you like a replay of this show, I am found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you.